Welcome to the Cantina Chatter podcast.
Turn up your nostalgia.
Hey everyone, and welcome back. I'm Victoria, your host here on the Cantina Chatter podcast, your resource for Star Wars, new and retro toys, pop culture, and randomness from the 80s and 90s. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to 2020. Wow. And the first episode of the year. Once again, I will be joined by Dave, our correspondent for Star Wars Television, who's going to be wrapping up our Star Wars The Mandalorian discussion that we've been having for the past couple of months. The Mandalorian recently wrapped up its first season, and it's been amazing and awesome. And if you listen to me and Dave's previous episodes talking about The Mandalorian, we've really been enjoying it, and it's come to a very interesting and quite satisfying close for this first season. Lots of surprises, lots of great stuff along the way. Merchandise practically non-existent, which is really irritating considering how awesome The Mandalorian is, and you guys know, Baby Yoda and all that. So I hope you guys enjoy the following conversation with Dave. In other news, not a whole lot going on with the channel. As you guys know, the whole COPPA thing kind of threw me for a loop, and I'm still ironing out the details. It doesn't seem like it's quite as bad, I guess, as a lot of us feared it might be, but the truth of it is that we just don't really know. It's still too early to say what the ultimate effect of this is going to be on content creators who are creating content on YouTube that, can be interpreted as being for kids. We don't really know. YouTube has come out and said, hey, if you're not really targeting kids and it is available, or your content is accessible by all ages, then you don't really need to make it as indicated as being made for kids. But there's a lot of gray area. A lot of us aren't sure. Some toy reviewers are continuing to do the reviews. Some that said they weren't going to do it are still doing it. And, some people aren't. So, I don't know. Like I told you guys before, I don't really know that I ever set out to do toy reviews forever. There's a lot of other things I'd like to tackle as well within the whole VC Victoria's Cantina realm that I think would be quite valuable for me to work on. So, lots of stuff to consider. I'm still ironing out those details. And once I know for sure, what the future of the channel is, I will let you guys know. But I do have some plans. I do have some things I am looking at and considering. And I'm pretty excited. I think some cool stuff's going to be coming along the way. Also, I'm ramping up the toy photography on Instagram. I had kind of been a little bit slow on that over the past couple months. Just had so much going on in my life outside of all of this stuff, outside of content creation and podcasting and, all that stuff. So, but, definitely got some more stuff going. It's been a little slow on the toy collecting front. Mattel did send me a really cool Primal Attack box. I did an Instagram live unboxing of that. And, really cool stuff. I'm really thankful to Mattel for sending that out to me. Lots of cool stuff for Primal Attack this year, which is their Jurassic World campaign for 2020. I don't know if it's going to carry through the entire year, but at least for now, that's what it is. It's all about Primal Attack. So there are some photos on social media. Be sure to check those out. Also, I want to let you guys know, if you are following me only like on Facebook or only like on Twitter or, whatever, you're missing some of the content that I am putting out there. I do a little bit different stuff on each of the different platforms. So definitely want to encourage you, if you're only following me like on Facebook, well, check me out on Twitter, check me out on Instagram. And don't do a whole lot with Facebook, honestly. It's my least favorite platform. A lot of the stuff that I post to Instagram gets posted to Facebook automatically, since they are the same company basically. And there is that way to merge the two together. But yeah, definitely, check out the different platforms. I'm always talking about all kinds of different toy stuff and stuff about these franchises that we all love and adore and, have so much to say about, because obviously there's nothing more important to do. Also, a huge shout out to my husband who gave me an amazing Christmas gift this year. He got me the Hot Toys Justice League Wonder Woman, which really it's the Wonder Woman movie. Wonder Woman, it's just that, I guess for marketing purposes, Hot Toys wanted to designate it as the Justice League figure, but it's more specific to the film Wonder Woman rather than Justice League for the most part. So awesome figure, really happy to have it in the collection. She looks amazing. I did post some photos of her on social media as well, so certainly check those out. And other than that, I just want to let you guys know that the podcast Cantina Chatter is going to be going on a little bit of a hiatus following this episode. This is kind of going to wrap up, this last chain of recent episodes where we were talking about The Mandalorian and The Rise of Skywalker and all that stuff. So I don't have an exact date when the show's going to come back. We're probably going to take about a month off, month and a half maybe. Just need to recharge my batteries. And as you guys know, I also do Collect Jurassic World with Tim from Collect Jurassic. And that's on hiatus as well. We're going to be going into season 2 pretty soon here. So that's on the horizon. And I also do the Discoveryland podcast, which is my Disneyland history podcast. So that's been on hiatus too. Season 2 was tremendously successful. And I'm going to begin working on season 3 here in the near future. And that'll debut later in the spring, maybe. I'm not sure exactly when yet. But yeah, as always, thank you guys for tuning in. VC is, wrapping up 7 years of content creation. So it's been a little bit of a haul, and, I'm immensely grateful to all of you guys who have been here from the beginning. And even if you're new to discovering Victoria's Cantina, well, we're all about the toys here. We're all about the love of these franchises, whether it's Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Batman, anything really. I mean, there's so many of them. And, we're not talking about the most important topics that affect our lives, but the goal of Victoria's Cantina has always been to focus on the things that bring a little bit more joy into our lives. There's so much in the world that is negative. There are so many problems. There are so many really vital things that greatly affect all of us. And, we acknowledge that, we accept that, but, the focus here is on the positive, on the things that we like, the things that maybe aren't as important perhaps, but, are important for our well-being and, definitely help brighten our lives. And I hope that, you find these episodes entertaining. I hope that you find all the content that I put out there entertaining. It's all for the love of it. It's all for fun. And that's basically what I get out of it, is the satisfaction of putting it on and the satisfaction of, you guys listening and enjoying and, being entertained. That's what I do. I'm an entertainer essentially. So, that's why we're here. So, just wanted to reiterate that because I think it's important every now and then to kind of, take pause and reflect and, just kind of talk a little bit about why we're here. And, that's why we're here basically. So in any case, like I said, I think there's a lot of good stuff coming in 2020 for the VC brand. There's a lot of really cool stuff. So hit me up, social media. We're on Patreon. We're on YouTube, kind of, sort of right now. We're still figuring that out. And of course the podcast, leave us reviews. Speaking of which, tomorrow is my birthday. The day after this episode publishes and goes live, it's my birthday. And it's kind of not really a milestone birthday, but kind of an in-between milestone sort of birthday. So if you want to do your favorite Cantina hostess a solid, leave me a review. That's what I'm asking you guys for. Leave a review over on iTunes. It only takes a few seconds. Head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, and write us a little review. It's been a while since we've gotten reviews. Or you can buy a t-shirt. Our merchandise is available through Teespring or TeePublic. I will place links in the show notes. If you're interested in getting a t-shirt and supporting and representing the Victoria's Cantina brand, you can get your VC shirt. You can get your Cantina Chatter podcast shirt. We have some other shirts available as well. And a fun selection of various merchandise like totes and mugs and cups and stickers. And, a variety of other things that you can get. There's shirts for the kids, there's shirts for men, shirts for women. We do donate 50% of the proceeds of the hashtag Girls Like Toys Too t-shirt to He for She, which helps promote gender equality throughout the world. And this week, we are also donating 50% of the proceeds of any of the other t-shirts to help combat the terrible wildfires that are going on down in Australia. So please consider. I will place links in the show notes for both the TeePublic and the Teespring stores. And with that being said, without further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the show. Hey Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Victoria. How you doing?
I am doing okay. My fingers are a little bit... So apparently, if you're cutting and slicing butternut squash, it can leave this residue on your fingers that is almost impossible to get off.
Oh.
I was completely unaware of this. Had I known, I probably would have used a glove or something.
Yeah,
but
news to me.
yeah, I mean, I even tried nail polish remover, and this stuff, it just ain't coming off. I don't know what I'm going to do about it.
Man.
It's wild, but it's all good because we're here to talk The Mandalorian. The season just wrapped up this past Friday, a few days back, and we're going to recap episodes 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, what a ride. This has been a lot of fun. I'm super excited. Sad to see it end, but we're going to sit here and we're going to talk about it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, we're gonna get through it. It is very difficult that the season is over. Now we gotta wait till next fall to get season 2, which, oh my god, that seems just so far away. But I guess it'll be here before we know it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people online today saying they're canceling Disney Plus until Mandalorian comes back, which I think is silly. There's going to be tons of other Star Wars and Marvel content, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's too bad. There's a lot of great stuff on Disney Plus. I just don't have time to watch all of it right now. But I mean, the Imagineering story, I think was, I don't know if you watched that one, but I thought it was fantastic.
I'm definitely gonna get to it. I gotta fight my kids. I guess they're watching like Doc McStuffins and all the Disney Junior shows like all the time.
Nice. Yeah, like the Jeff Goldblum show. I love it. Lots of good stuff on there. Disney movies, Marvel movies, Star Wars, plenty of stuff. And I think they just added The Last Jedi on there too. Yeah, so... All right, so let's talk about episode 6. So what is the title of episode 6?
The Prisoner.
The Prisoner. So I really thought this was a great episode. The first time I saw it, I was maybe not completely into parts of it, but I actually rewatched it this afternoon, and I think it's one of my favorites in Mandalorian.
Yeah, it almost seems like every episode I watch, I come away saying that was my favorite until I see another one. But, going back, and maybe I'll rank them sometime if I ever feel like getting around to it. But yeah, I really enjoyed this one upon initial viewing.
Yeah, this is a good one. There's a lot of fun stuff going on in this one that gives it a really unique feel for the series. And I think, that's the music, that's the characters, that's just the whole dynamic of, what they're trying to do, in the prison and everything. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. So basically, Mandalorian is traveling through space, and this episode kind of caps off, this little series of individual adventures that Mandalorian and Baby Yoda are going on.
Yeah, this one right away has a much different feel. There's a much larger cast than any of the other episodes. I guess it's kind of set it up as it's going to be like a heist to begin with, and right away you're introduced to a new character, Ron. And you're going somewhere different in this episode. Yeah.
So, Mandalorian lands on this. What would you call it? Is it almost like a space station of some sort?
I wrote ship in my notes, but then watching it again, and at the end, it's definitely a space station like Deep Space Nine or something. Or
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a little bit different from Star Wars. I mean, we've seen things like this in Clone Wars. I kind of thought about that medical bay that they had for the clones. I don't know if you remember that, but it was kind of like a hospital or something, I think, where they were keeping the clones. But yeah, it reminded me a little bit of that, just kind of the station floating out in space. And I think I hear a car outside somewhere going really fast. Yeah, so they were, so he lands in this hangar that's part of this, this vessel or whatever you want to call it, the station. And it seems like he's going back to somewhere he's been before. He kind of knows the people that are here.
Yeah, like an old crew that he used to run with, I guess, before his guild days. He seems desperate, and he reaches out to them, looking to score some money, and to finance with him being with the baby.
Yeah. So when he arrives here, he meets this character, and what is the character's name?
The credits name him as Ranzer Malk, but I think in the entire episode they always call him Ran.
Yeah, that sounds correct. So this is Mark Boone Jr., who I was really pleased to see him. I've seen him in other stuff. He was in Batman Begins. I think that's the first thing I remember him in. And I think even before that, he might have had a bit in one of Christopher Nolan's earlier films before that, Memento. And then, of course, he was in... I watched Sons of Anarchy, and I really enjoyed that show. He was in that quite heavily, so I was pleasantly surprised to see that he was in this one.
Yeah.
My dog's coming in. I don't know if you can hear her pause. Come on in. So instantly, we get the sense that, he knows this guy. They've had a relationship in the past, and basically he's tasked him with accepting work to go on a mission, but he lets him know, you're not going alone. There's going to be a team of 4 that are going to be going along with you. He gets right away introduced to Mayfeld, who's going to, I guess, be like the leader of this crew on the missions. Ron says he doesn't go out anymore, and he's played by the comedian Bill Burr. It's funny, he's actually has some of humor in the character. It's a little bit different than his stand-up. He makes a joke about being ex-Imperial and how he's better shot he wasn't a stormtrooper, which I thought was hilarious. Oh, yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And then, so we're introduced to another character as well, and this is Dev Ronian, correct?
Yeah. That's Berg, played by Clancy Brown.
Yeah, this is something I was also pleasantly surprised to see. I love seeing those original trilogy aliens, like, in the series, and we've never seen another Dev Ronian outside of the Cantina before. And, getting to see one and like see what they look like when they're talking and stuff was pretty cool. So I thought that was really a nice, way to go with that species.
Yeah, definitely getting to see them stand up and, compared to other species and other humans and walking around. And it was real cool.
Yeah. So then there's a droid. The droid's name is Zero. And this is kind of a different kind of droid. I don't think we've seen this before in live action, as I recall.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with what type it is. It looked new to me for what I've seen.
Yeah, but it makes it pretty clearly on that, it's smart and that it knows how to fly. And
he makes the joke about being, smarter and better pilot than the Mandalorian.
Yeah, and then, of course, later we see what he means by that flying and... not good if you're kind of just hanging around in the back of the ship.
Like a bad school bus driver or something.
Yeah.
And I guess the last character we meet is, it seems like Mandalorian's had a relationship with Xi'an, played by Natalie Tenya, which I knew her from Game of Thrones.
Yeah. So, so she is a Twi'lek, and... have we seen Twi'leks in Mandalorian so far? I feel like we maybe have in the background.
But yeah, I don't think so. Not like up close personal like this, but maybe there was one lurking in the background somewhere.
Yeah, and we see them a little bit in the prequels to Aayla Secura, but she doesn't have any lines. They're featured quite heavily in Clone Wars and in Rebels, and then we see them obviously in Return of the Jedi, right? But we don't really like. There's not one that's really featured quite as heavily, I don't think, as she's been in this episode.
Yeah, I definitely like the way it is. She seems like creepy the way she walks and she hisses and stuff like that, and brings a lot to the episode. And it's funny and everything, and it works nice.
Yeah, she's definitely kind of. It's like I said, a really different dynamic. You think back to Clone Wars, and they don't really the Twi'leks don't really act like that, they're just kind of more like humans basically, but they don't hiss, they don't have fangs, but I think Bib Fortuna might have had fangs if I recall. Yeah,
it's just nice to see him just walking around and with everything in this animated what I say, like Filoni being from the animated and seeing everything in live action now, like we'll get to other things with the Mandalorians and stuff that we haven't seen, and it's cool. It's kind of like seeing like an animated vision brought to the screen now.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, so they head off on their adventure. So they need the
Yeah, they
what's
say
the name
the
of the
Razor
ship?
Crest that they need
Crest.
because it's pre-Imperial, pre-Republic. It's off everyone's radar, and apparently they can get right up to the ship that they need to, which it would be a prisoner transport to get on, because that's the job they're on. They need to free a prisoner, so they say.
Yeah. So, they head out there in the ship, and when they get there, well, like I alluded to earlier on, it's kind of a process. Like there's a lot of hazing basically that goes on with Mandalorian. So they're trying to get him to take off his helmet. They're trying to figure out, what's the history, with the, you and the other character, and there's just a lot of banter back and forth, and you kind of get the sense that Mandalorian, he's in his own ship, but he's very uncomfortable.
Yeah, he's a passenger on his own ship. It is a little weird. Like you said, it's hazing. They're teasing him. There's some good humor here. Bill Burr doing the mocking of like the Gungan voice and stuff, and they want to pull his helmet off. Berg actually get in a fight. There's some tussling and stuff, and they end up opening the door where the Mandalorian didn't want him to see that the baby Yoda was hanging out.
Yeah. I think there's a funny comment in there. They're like, did you and Sheehan make that?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff that Bill Burr it slips in there, and it's like it's funny. He's a comedian, but it's different than his stand-up. I think he did really well acting in this.
Yeah, it was really good. I felt like this crew of characters was really solid, just through and through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He did a good job
Yeah.
of like playing like the tough guy, but you could tell maybe he was like sizing everyone up, feeling them out. He did good.
Yeah, totally. So they arrive at this prison transport, and we learn that it's a New Republic prison transport, and they kind of have a rough landing, based on how Zero is piloting, and they make their way inside, and then it doesn't take too long before they cause a little bit of commotion, correct? After gunning down a little mouse droid.
Yeah, the Berg, I guess, he messes up the mouse droid, and I guess it sets off some other droids to come and check out what's going on, and then they get in a little bit of a shootout, and they kind of leave the Mandalorian hang out to dry there. And he's got to be the one to take them all down.
Yeah, it's there's some pretty cool action in here. Just kind of seeing like these different droids. So these are different. We haven't seen these before, but I did notice they have like the Rebel Trooper style blaster rifles. So they're obviously recycling that from the original trilogy. But yeah, so these droids, they're not the best. It doesn't seem like their capabilities for fighting are like the cream of the crop or anything.
No, kind of more like numbers, right? If there's 4 of them or 3 of them against one person, they're probably gonna win. But Mandalorian shows them like what a tough fighter he is, which is real cool to see. The Beskar armor comes in handy so much in this series. He's always getting blaster bolts dinging here and there, and it seems to help him out a lot in fights.
Yeah, totally. So one of the things we glimpse early on is that they're kind of trying to fight their way through these, and then Mandalorian just kind of takes matters into his own hands, and he's able to take out like 8 of them or something on his own.
Yeah, it's pretty epic, and it seems to me like maybe they're just kind of like hanging back. One of them goes to help, and I think Mayfeld stops him or something like that, right? And just let the Mandalorian deal with it.
Yep, yeah, totally. But no, it's really cool to see. It's definitely like some Batman level stuff. He's like he's using his whole arsenal, and he's using like his fists and his elbows to just like fight his way through these droids, and really cool stuff. Really cool. Yeah, we've seen Mando like before, like utilize his artillery to the best of his ability, and this is just another outlet for us to see that.
Yeah, it's nice that you bring up the Batman. We'll definitely get to that towards the end of this episode. There's a lot, I think, that ties Mandalorian and Batman together, the style they're going for in this episode.
Yeah, totally. So they continue on, and along the way they encounter more droids, and I'm not sure if this moment happens quite yet, but we see hovering around these So in A New Hope, it was called, I think it was called R4, no, what was it called? It was one of the, so it's the ones that are floating in this episode. And we see one of them in A New Hope when the Jawas arrive to the Lars homestead and they're trying to sell him one of these droids. It's like a really like bulky, like green, like droid.
Yeah, it's like a
but
water
we see
heater
a
or
couple of
something.
them. Yeah, we see a couple of them in this episode, and they're just kind of hovering around.
I guess it'll show us how powerful Berg is. He just jumps on it and just destroys it, but one-handed by himself is pretty cool.
Yeah. So it, definitely. I think each character in this episode, great group, but we did get to see like how each one has like their own flavor, so to speak. They each bring something different to the group and have different capabilities. So
yeah, definitely like a heist setup, like a heist movie or something, where everyone brings their own thing to the table and they showcase it along the way.
Yeah. That's a really good point. So I guess around this point, is this when they make their way to like the cockpit of the vehicle?
Yep. They make their way to the control room. I guess as they're moseying around the corridors, they're talking to Zero. The droid is directing them from the Razor Crest, and they make their way into the control room. And we find out that it isn't just droids on this prison ship; that there's actually a person there. And it turns out to be like someone from the Rebellion, which would be the New Republic now, played by Matt Lanter, who we know is the voice of Anakin on the Clone Wars.
Yeah, that was a great cameo. And I, the first time around, I actually didn't put that together.
No.
It's, we talk about, quite frequently how there's so many actors that we don't recognize in the series, but here's a guy that didn't have any makeup on or anything, and we still didn't recognize him.
And his face is always out there. He's acting and stuff all the time. I know what he looks like, and I don't know. They call him Egghead, right? And I guess it's because of that.
Yeah, they make fun of his shoes and his belt, but I love the outfit. I mean, it's obviously very similar to those Rebel Troopers in A New Hope, but it's a little bit different, and it has a very like in A New Hope, a lot of stuff has a very 1970s sort of vibe to it, and I felt like his outfit really had that feeling.
Yeah, that's the best stuff when they can throw it right back to the 70s. It's cool.
Yeah, I love that. Basically they threaten him. It's revealed that he has this sort of kind of like a beacon, right? Like a little remote where he can alert the Republic basically that there's trouble, and then they come and investigate. So so they're kind of toying with him a little bit. Mandalorian doesn't want to kill him. He's trying to talk him down, put down the weapon, put down the the beacon. But the other characters aren't quite on the same page with Mando.
Yeah, he's trying to do his like negotiating there, and he's like, basically like, put it down. We don't want to hurt you. You can live. We'll let you live. And Mayfeld is like, no, we won't. Like, then it turns into a standoff, and they're all pointing guns at each other. And Xi'an is kind of off to the side there, and she kind of has enough, and she just throws like a knife thing in his neck and kills him.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, but it's quite obvious that Xi'an doesn't have a whole lot of patience for some of the antics these characters get up to. He dies. We don't see it, but presumably, somewhere in this scene, Mando picks up the remote, or maybe he does it later. Maybe he does that later.
Yeah, I think he does it a little bit later.
Yeah, but in any case, they continue on. They figure out where the prisoner is located at, and they make their way to him.
Yeah, and they open up find out that the prisoner they've been looking for that also has history with Mandalorian, and it's Quinn, and he's the brother of Xi'an, and apparently Mando left him on a job sometime in the past, and presumably he's been imprisoned ever since.
Yeah, he makes a comment, something like, the man who left me is here to free me or something. And he's kind of scary looking, I felt like. Yeah, kind of like, Bib Fortuna was pretty creepy, but, in the animation, I don't think they really convey how creepy some of these aliens can be. And when you see him in live action, like even talking about Berg, like, we see... what was his name in Rebels? There was a Devronian that was always helping out, like Ezra.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I can't remember his name, but he looked like a nice Devronian, but not in this show.
Yeah, with the animation, I guess you don't want to scare the kids with like a devil alien, right? But
that too.
This is looking good here in live action.
Yeah, which is basically what I think that mask was in A New Hope. But yeah, so they free him, but we realize kind of at that point that not everything is what it seems, and I guess part of the plot, and I don't know if this goes, how far this goes, but definitely within this group, their plan was to entrap, Mandalorian into one of these cells.
Yeah, definitely double cross them. As soon as they pull Quinn out, the Mandalorian is just thrown into the cell, and they close the door, and Shion yells, "You deserve this," and they all run away. Yeah,
so that's kind of a bummer, but he's Mandalorian, so I think anybody watching this show probably figures he's gonna get out of there. Just how is he gonna do it? So and the way he does it is he's trying. It's like it seems like it's like hermetically sealed, I think, kind of like the trash compactor in A New Hope, right? Because he blasts,
that's right.
and it just kind of it bounces around. So he lures a droid, one of the security droids, like close enough to where he grabs onto him, and he's able to pry his arm off, and then I guess he uses the little retractable, I don't even know what you would call that, like a little widget or tool or something, and he's able to get his way out of there.
Yeah, pretty fast. Maybe I thought he was going to spend some more time in the cell, but nope, he's Mandalorian, and he gets out of there real quick. And the rest of our crew are wandering down these corridors again, and they get a message on the comm from Zero letting them know that the Mandalorian has escaped.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool what happens after this, because more of the Batman sort of thing. Like you see the lights start turning off in the different corridors, and the doors start shutting, and you get the sense that, you guys made a really bad idea, because now Mando's going to come for you.
Yeah, again, it's cool. It reminds me of like a video game. I think I was saying on one of the other episodes. It's just kind of like Arkham Asylum, or like a Splinter Cell or Metal Gear Solid, where you're creeping around in the dark and sneaking up on people. I really like that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. Those Arkham games are amazing. I hope we get another one.
Yeah.
I hope we get a Mandalorian video game. Wouldn't that be awesome too?
Yeah,
I was thinking about
really
that earlier. Yeah. Anyway. So basically Mando, reverts to his hunter type instinct, where, he one by one, he tracks them all down, and we see him kind of scuffle here and there. And I think Berg is the first one he goes after. Is that correct?
Yeah, they track him back, and Mandalorian is in the control room where they killed the rebel guy, played by Matt Lanter. This is, I think, where we see Mandalorian pick up that little beacon, that tracking beacon. And then Berg makes his way, and there's a scuffle. They're throwing him across the controls, and Mandalorian eventually gets the door to come down on Berg. But then we again see how powerful he is, and he just lifts up the door. And I guess he doesn't realize, and Mandalorian hits the secondary door that closes the other way and smashes him.
Yeah, that was pretty great, pretty brutal. Obviously, we learned a little bit later that it's not as bad as it looked, but
I thought it was real brutal at first. Yeah,
in the moment, that was a great,
Well, it's not the first time in the series. Very first episode, we see Mandalorian just cut some guy in half. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think after that, who's his next victim after that?
I believe he goes after Mayfeld next.
I think you're right. He goes after Mayfeld, and so this is more like you were saying, more of the Batman type thing, and I think we actually even see this in The Dark Knight Rises. Where Batman's kind of moving through like one of the sewers, like when he's trying to find Bane, and the way the lights are flashing, and you see him one spot then another, and he sneaks up on whoever he's going after, and it's the same kind of thing here. Like you just see like his stealth capabilities and the way he sneaks up on Mayfeld.
Yeah, those red flashing lights and the way the camera is angled, it's real claustrophobic and very cool and stealthy looking.
Yeah, it's really cool. We don't really see how he takes him out, but we just kind of see like where Mayfeld becomes aware that Mandalorians are right behind him, and then it kind of just cuts to there.
Yeah,
and
very
then,
horror like a horror film or something. He's screaming or something, and just a edit cut into the next scene.
Right. Yeah. So then Shion's his last victim at this point. And so we saw earlier in the episode how she's able to throw these little knife type gadget things that she has at it. They have lights on them. I don't know exactly what they are. They're kind of like ninja stars.
Yeah,
though,
and there's
something.
a lot of them, which I didn't expect.
Yeah, so this is obviously like, one of her skills is using these. So she's throwing a bunch of them at Mando. He's coming up to her. He's able to deflect most of them. I think he gets hit by one of them, like in his shoulder or something.
I think so.
Yeah, but then he draws a knife. I guess, does he draw a knife, or is he using one of these same like weapons?
I think it was his knife or vibro blade or something, and he just puts it right up to her neck, and then that's where that scene cuts. Yeah,
exactly. And then finally, he goes for Quinn, and I guess Quinn's about to exit onto out of the prison. And Mando catches up to him, and he's trying to kind of like negotiate with him, like you need to take me in, you're not going to get paid. And then I guess he assumes at this point that, everybody else is dead.
Yeah, he asked him, did you kill them all? And the Mandalorian says they got what they deserved, which should be a clue to what we'll see later on.
Exactly. So we don't see exactly how this plays out in this moment, but then, Mando returns to the space station place. And, at that point we see that, he did take Quinn in, and he's there to collect his bounty. And, we realize that, the rest of the crew isn't with him. They're probably dead, but we don't know exactly yet as the audience.
Yeah, we're skipping over Zero actually stalking
right.
Baby Yoda, and that's kind of like woven in between what we were just talking about. There's it cuts back and forth, and looks like Baby Yoda is going to get attacked by Zero, and then he puts his hands up like he's going to use the Force, and then there's a blaster fire, and Mandalorian saves him, and Baby Yoda kind of looks at his hand thinking, maybe did I do that?
Yeah, that was cool. Like seeing the hide and seek, and it's just funny, like Baby Yoda, like he's genuinely trying to hide from this droid. So yeah, no, that's all fun stuff. And then so he collects his bounty, but then as he's about to take off, what was the guy's name?
Ron. The no questions asked, right? And Mandalorian gets paid. Kind of goes off there, and right as soon as he exits the hangar, he says, kill him. And then there's like a ship that comes up that's gonna blast him in the Razor Crest out of the sky.
Yeah, I don't know what kind of ship that was, but it kind of looked like one of those Mandalorian, like no, not Mandalorian. I think the one that maybe is it the one that Hondo flies?
No, I don't remember.
No, Cad Bane.
Yeah,
Cad Bane. It looked kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it was, but yeah, it's like some sort of a drone or something, I suppose.
I think that's what they say later on, right? Because then here's where we find out that Mandalorian has put the tracking beacon that he grabbed off the prison ship, and he puts it in the back belt of Quinn, and Quinn doesn't know what it is. And then right here is a real cool part where we see 3 X-Wings come out of hyperspace right in front of the space station.
Yep. And the cameos in these X-Wings are pretty awesome. Yeah,
it's got Dave Filoni, Deborah Chow, and Rick Famuyiwa, who's actually directing this episode. And I only recognized Dave Filoni first viewing through, and then later I realized it was the other directors. But it's pretty cool. They put themselves in Star Wars.
Yeah, that was cool. Especially Dave Filoni. He's been around so long, in the Star Wars universe, and his delivery is kind of funny too, because it's just like exactly like the way he talks in interviews and stuff. Like just kind of like matter of fact, and it's awesome. But yeah, great cameos, and it's really cool to see the X-Wings in action again.
Yeah, it's we haven't been here yet in this series, and it looks just like it could fit right into A New Hope and stuff. Even those cockpit cameras that they have, it looked really cool.
Yeah. So they basically take out that drone, It doesn't look like they blow up the whole station, though, right? From what we can tell.
Yeah, first time I saw it, I think I just assumed that it was all blown up, but they don't actually show it. They just show them blowing up the hangars and stuff on each side, and then Mandalorian is out of there before we actually see finally what happened.
Yeah, which makes me wonder a little bit like how that beacon works, because if that beacon were on the prison transport, would they have gone and done the same thing, or
I don't know. They said something about that drone thing coming out there, so maybe that's what they were trying to do.
Right. I guess they're assuming that it's, like a hostile group or whatever. But yeah, so basically Mando and Baby Yoda fly off, and Mando says to Baby Yoda, I told you that was a bad idea. And that's about where the episode ends.
Yeah, did you notice at all, back to, we were talking about Batman, the real quiet parts of the music I noticed, and it kind of sounded a lot like the music that you would have heard in like Batman Returns or something like from Tim Burton.
100%.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that when I was rewatching it today. 100%.
Yeah. I just thought that was really cool. There's some real cool music stuff in here if you pay attention and listen, and it's like he knows where the directors and stuff are going, and he works little things in that are callbacks to other properties. And
yeah, no, totally. I love Batman Returns, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess actually because of you doing the podcast on the 30th anniversary, I went and picked up the Blu-rays, which I didn't have, and I did the whole rewatch in the fall and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, like Batman 89 and Batman Returns, I love those. Like, they're just, I know there's a lot of issues with Batman Returns, and it's weird, and he's kind of a killer, but just the nostalgia, I guess, is the main thing. The toys and all that.
I can still remember in Christmas time then when the first film came out, and trying to get the Batmobile and not being able to track it down. And yeah.
Yeah, I never had. So, I know we're kind of going on a detour here, but Toy Biz is the company that was making those toys initially, and their Batmobile was like a convertible.
Yeah, that's the one that I end up getting eventually. I still have it. It's all broken.
Yeah, cool. I think I did get that, but I think my mom got it maybe like at a, I don't know, garage sale or something, and it was missing some of the parts. But then, Kenner got the rights like a year later, and then they made like a really awesome Batmobile. But I never got that. It took like 25, 26 years until I finally added that to the collection.
Yeah, I don't think I got any of the Kenner stuff when I was an actual kid. I guess it was the Toy Biz stuff that I had, and I was on to other things by then. But yeah, I can still remember that, the craze and stuff, and being in like a KB Toys, and then still going and getting... we used to rent movies all the time, and my parents actually we had to end up buying the VHS because you couldn't rent it, and we had that for like ever.
Nice. I still have my very first Batman action figure, and it was from that Toy Biz line. It was just regular like Batman. Somehow my dad bought him for me, and somehow or another he survived these last 30 years. He still has his accessory, and my grandma. Is that the
yellow belt one with the grappling belt?
Exactly.
Yeah, I have that one too, and it's so busted, but I still have the little batarang for some reason. I'm missing, like the belt broke off. Weird. I'm missing the cape, but I still have that little batarang for some reason.
Yeah, the belt works on mine. My grandma replaced the cape because she was really good about this. Like, I was always losing the capes on these figures, and she was really good with like, sewing, and she would always cut out like replacement capes for me. Cool. that's what this figure has. So
nice.
Yeah. Anyway,
that was fun.
yeah, it was. Yeah, but I totally did notice that about the music. It totally, like, I don't know if it was deliberate or not, but let's assume that it was. Very much a callback to Batman Returns.
So. Some of the other stuff we talked in previous episodes had like a Terminator feel to some of the music. I think he's very ingrained in the pop culture and trying to bring callbacks to where he sees fit, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so moving into episode 7. And what is the title of episode 7?
Episode 7 is The Reckoning, and this one's directed by Deborah Chow.
Very cool. So episode 7, trying to remember how it starts.
Opens in space. Mandalorian in the Razor Crest. I always say Razor Quest, like Galaxy Quest or something. But anyway, the Razor Crest flying in space, and he gets a transmission from Grief Karga, and it's an offer to the Mandalorian to come back, make peace, make amends, and help him kill the client.
Yeah, so, I think as an audience member, you're kind of thinking, well, is this legit? Is it a trap? What's going to happen? But first thing Mando does is he goes back. Does he go back to the same planet that he was before?
Yeah, the one where they helped with the tribe defeat the raiders there, and he goes back and gets Cara Dune. Yeah,
he goes and lets her know, hey, I got to deal with this. Are you in? And she's kind of reluctant, but then he says, well, he is an Imperial. And then she's like, oh, yeah, I'm in.
He gets her, knows just what to say, gets her on board.
Yeah. So then, as they're about to head out, they kind of realize, well, we need to figure something out about, Baby Yoda. Somebody's got to kind of keep an eye on him. So then he goes back to... Did we ever get the name of this planet? I can't remember.
I don't think so. I don't have it in my notes now, but they go back to the planet to get Queel to help watch Baby Yoda. He kind of offers to rehire him again, and Quill doesn't want to hear that, saying that he's independent, but he eventually agrees that, as long as the Imperial presence is still around and this baby can't be free, he agrees to help him, to help the baby.
Yeah, so he he brings them inside, and then that's kind of when they realize that IG-11 is still in the picture. Yeah. But he's a little bit different than he was before, right?
Yeah, this is really cool part. They have this cutaway, and I think this is the first time that we kind of leave the Mandalorian's point of view from most things. And there's a nice cutaway of him teaching IG-11 to, after he rebuilds them, to do things again, simple tasks, working hard, and he kind of, it's cool. It's kind of fatherly, he's teaching the droid to come up and work with his hands the way Queel is always talking about.
Yeah, this is a really cool scene. Just the way they animated it, it almost felt like stop motion, just the way IG-11 was moving around.
But yeah, they really nailed that.
It looked great. It looked like something out of 1980s, like Saturday morning, TV show or something. Just the way just the way they brought him to life, and kind of seeing the process of of how a droid kind of learns to do things. And we've never seen that really in Star Wars, so I thought that was a really lovely touch, including that.
Yeah, this whole scene, just for me, cements even more how much I like this character of Queel, and he kind of almost is like a very knowledgeable father figure or something to the Mandalorian, because he's always showing him that here's another way to do something, and you can do it this way, and take your time and learn and craft and stuff. And I really find it cool to show how he works with his hands and how he has time to bring this droid back from the dead and to nurture it and to train it into doing something useful.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's a really good point. So the Mandalorian sees him, and he's like, well, this isn't going to work out. The droid, it's still in his nature to be an assassin droid. But then Quill's like, no, he's fine. I've, completely reprogrammed him. He's not going to, harm Baby Yoda or anything. So, so I guess reluctantly, Mando agrees to let him, be part of, the group. So he's able to convince Quill to come along with them on the Razor Crest and kind of help them out. But one of his stipulations is that he brings the Blurgs with him.
That's just cool. It's a whole crew, a motley crew just hanging out on the ship there.
Yeah. So as they're on the ship, one of the things we see is that... is this where the arm wrestling takes place?
Yeah, they're trying to pass some time, and there's arm wrestling between Cara Dune and Mandalorian, and the baby Yoda kind of notices, looks like Mandalorian's losing here or something, and he decides to force choke Cara.
Yeah, this is interesting. I totally didn't expect that, and
no.
The look that he has on his face when he does this, he kind of has a mean look.
Yeah, I guess it's the rough life he's living here now. He's maybe not making the best choices, or he just thinks everything is a danger moment or whatever. But he Kara gets released after Mandalorian protests, and she is just basically like, that is not cool. And then everyone is sort of amazed, and Queel is like, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about now. The Mud Horde incident makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, so they're kind of piecing things together. I think Quill definitely realizes, like, there's the Force is going on here. And I think around this point is pretty close to when they arrive back on Navarra, correct?
Yep, that's the very next part. They land, whole crew exits the ship, and they meet Greef Karga, and of course he's got some people by his side too, and they all meet each other, and they come up with this plan to get rid of the client and the Imperial presence.
Yeah, so the plan is basically to go back to the town, have Mando get close enough to take out the
client.
What was the client?
Yeah.
The client. That's his name. The client, and kind of restore order, since the Empire is kind of becoming an increasingly large presence here, and obviously inhibiting the actions of the Guild and their operations. So we see these two bounty hunters that are with Karga, and he basically says, Cara Dune needs to stay, on the ship, and Mando's like, nope, not happening. She's coming with me. And he shows them, Baby Yoda, this is what the Imperials are after. And, but basically, I guess they decide that IG-11 stays with the Razor Crest.
Basically, two crews, they kind of, you can tell something is up here, and Greef Karga looks like he's like working it out in his head, like, okay, we're changing the plan, Cara Dune's coming, and they decide that they're going to walk towards the city, and it should be nightfall by the time they get close. They're going to set up camp and then make their way into the city at dayrise.
Yep, so we see them go on this little journey. They're on the blurgs, or at least Mando, Cara Dune, and Quill are on the blurgs. And, there's lava, like a lava river, and there's these, I don't know, it's kind of like a deer or something, right? Like we see like a deer type creature. Yeah. And then in the next,
yeah, they're eating it next in the next scene, right?
Yeah, in the next scene they're eating it. So yeah, they have like a little campsite, and there's like a fire, and they're cooking this creature, and so next thing we know, they're just kind of like hanging out, talking, whatever, going over the plan again. But then these creatures, I have no idea what they're called, but these three giant like
space
dragon
pterodactyls or something, or
yeah, they're like dragons, or I don't know, something. They swoop in, and they go on the offensive.
And they let's see, first they take a bite out of Greef's arm. Then they pick up some blurgs. I think one or two. Take them away. They kill one of them, and there's blaster fire back and forth. It's real hard to see, real dark here. And then I think Cara ends up shooting one of them. Mandalorian burns one of them. A couple of them end up leaving them alone, and it turns out that their bite is poisonous, and Greef is pretty much near death here, being poisoned by this bite.
Yeah. How do those things pick up the blurgs? Blurgs just seem huge to me.
I don't know. Yeah. They were pretty big, like you said, like dragons or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Greef Karga's there, and he's bleeding out, and everybody's kind of looking at him. They give him a med pack, but it's not enough to really do anything. So, next thing we know is that, Baby Yoda's walking out, and Kara's like, get him out of here. And, but then, Quill's like, nope, wait, give him a minute. And, Baby Yoda puts his hand over Greef Karga, and then, we kind of realize.
Eat me.
Exactly. That was an awesome line. Because they know he's a carnivore because he eats meat. But yeah, so we see pretty quickly that, he's healing him, and, this kind of changes the dynamic as to how things are going to, go forward. So once he gets healed, I think it kind of just ends there, right? And then it kind of cuts to the next day.
Yeah, the next day, they're kind of walking, and it's like right before they get to the town. Kind of seem like something's up. The bounty hunters hang back, and Grief Karga just turns around, just blasts his two bounty hunters, killing them. And he's like, look, let's come up with a new plan. Our plan was to double cross you and kill you, but the baby healing me last night really changed my mind, so let's come up with a new plan.
Yep. And, they're a little bit reluctant to go along with him because they're, at this point they realize he was going to double cross them, or, his plan was never really to help them. So especially Cara Dune, she's like, we can't trust this guy. He's going to betray us again. But, ultimately Mando decides, well, what choice do we have? We need to, see if we can take out the client. And that's basically what they do. So they proceed with the plan, and the plan is to have Mando appear as though he's a prisoner, and make it appear that Cara Dune actually, tracked him down. And then the three of them are going to go into town. Quill goes on his way back to the ship, along with Baby Yoda. And I think Mando instructs him to, put like security protocols in place so that, nothing gets in there.
Just like the Batmobile.
Exactly. So they proceed towards the town. We see scout troopers. I think this is the first time in this series that we've seen the scout troopers. And, they verify Grief Karga's security clearance, and then they're like, okay, go ahead. And then, they walk in, and I think one of the troopers says something about, I'll give you like 20 credits for that helmet.
Yeah, and he says like, no, that's going on my wall.
So they go into, I think this is like the same little like cantina, right, that we see like in the first episode.
Yeah, we've been here a bunch of times now. This is usually where Grief hangs out and hands out the pucks for assignment and stuff. And
yeah, so they go in there. The client's in there with his stormtroopers. On the way, though, they realize, hey, there's more troopers kind of hanging out in the town.
Yeah, it's pretty funny because I think Grief Karga says earlier that there should be no more than 4, and it's like they keep multiplying, coming out of the woodwork, and Cara is every time it's just like you said there would be 4, and there's more.
Yeah. So they get in there, and they're trying to enact their plan. So they're trying to mislead him by thinking Baby Yoda is asleep in his capsule, and I think the client has a great line, in here. He's like, "Oh, I want to see the baby," and they're like, "Oh, he's sleeping. We can't disturb him." He's like, "Oh, I'll be quiet, or we'll be quiet."
Yeah, that's the way he says it. It's like, we will all be quiet. Like he's like so excited.
Yeah, it's funny. Those are just like some of the great little like touches that aren't really necessary and don't really add anything to the overall story, but they just make the show so much better.
Yeah. Definitely a more real feeling, it's not just stiff lines delivered in one way. It kind of flows up and down, and there's comedic parts and there's serious parts, and it works well.
Works very well. So then at this point, a call comes in, and the client says, excuse my manners, I have to take this important call. So he goes and takes the call, and we learn that it is Moff Gideon that he's speaking with, and he tells the client, are you sure that the child is there? And but before he can go and verify that, he dies.
Yeah, he gets blown up, shot through with a blaster. And all of a sudden, we see about 6 death troopers come right out in front of the tavern, and then a whole troop transport of stormtroopers is unloaded right out front.
Oh, that is epic! That Imperial troop transport. So, for those that don't know, that is actually a toy from the vintage Star Wars line. Not something that appears in the movies. It might have been like a Ralph McQuarrie concept, but they made a toy for it. And the way that it works is you put a few troopers like on each side. I think it's like 3 on each side. That toy was brought back for the Rebels line, I think like in 2015. And it was actually because it's in Rebels, like you see it on Lothal. And they made a toy for it, which is the first time they'd made a toy for it since the vintage Star Wars days. And the moment I saw that, it was just one of those things that like internally, like I was just like cheering that, like loving that. Yeah. So the Imperials, we see that there's a ton of them. And then Moff Gideon arrives in his X-Wing. And we actually see his X-Wing's a little bit different the way that
TIE
it lands,
fighter,
right? Or I'm sorry, X-Wing.
I just
TIE
wrote
fighter.
awesome TIE in my notes here. My daughter is so into Star Wars now since we've been watching so much of it. She wants to know all the different types of troopers, and she actually commented on the TIE fighter and was asking what was special about it. And I'm telling her it's just a regular Imperial TIE fighter, and then we see it collapse the wings there and it does something real special. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. So I guess if your TIE fighter can do this, you don't actually need a ladder to get down it. Yeah, so that was really neat. And it's pretty clear right away that Moff Gideon is pretty serious guy. If you don't listen, if you don't follow his orders, he's not gonna have a whole lot of patience for you, and you're probably gonna die just like the client did.
Yeah, so here we've got, as this is going on, the Mandalorian realizes what's going on. He starts radioing to Quill that basically they're trapped. The troopers are there. Get the baby back to the ship now. He starts, racing as fast as he can on the blurgs, and we see that the stormtroopers, the scout bike troopers, actually are on the same radio, and they hear it, and so they just take off after Baby Yoda as well.
Yeah, so they race over there, and you mentioned in the previous episode that we did for Mandalorian how the speeder bikes, in that one episode where they were on Tatooine looked, awesome. But then, here too, like just the whole way that they, did this, like we haven't seen like speeder bikes look this cool, like in action.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way that they move and, making those classic sounds and everything was really great to see. So basically, they're trapped in there, Mando, Cara Dune, and Greef Karga, and there's not a whole lot they can do. They're surrounded by troopers, and they're trying to make sure that, or get confirmation that Quill made it back to the ship. And initially, Quill does race back to the ship, but then I guess something happens with the communication, or everything is just going too fast, where he doesn't want to take a moment to answer because every moment's counting at this point. Is this where we see what happens to Quill?
Yeah, I believe so. The speeder bikes catch up, and you hear some shots fired, and the next thing you see is Baby Yoda on the ground, and one of the troopers flies by, swoops him up. Then they cut to Quill just kind of like laying there in the dirt. And is this where they're still trying to reach him on the comm, and he's obviously passed?
Yeah, so sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you were saying, Quill's like a fatherly figure. He's very wise, been around a long time. We learned that he was in indentured servitude to the Empire, and he worked his way out, and he's free now, and he's living for himself, and he's a good guy. He's helped Mandalorian multiple times, and he's taking care of the baby, and then they kill him.
Yeah, real sad. He might be like my favorite character thus far in the series, and I was like so sad when this episode ended.
Yeah, because I think it like the final shot is of his body, isn't it?
Yeah, and like it's pretty obvious that he's probably dead, but you're holding out hope to the next episode to see exactly. Well, maybe is it not that bad? I don't know. Right.
Yeah, definitely the saddest ending of any of these episodes up to this point. So I guess this leads us into episode 8, Redemption. Is that correct?
Yep. Episode 8, Redemption, directed by Taika Waititi.
Yeah, so he's coming back. This is his second episode that he directed?
Yep.
Yeah, so basically this begins exactly where the previous episode ended. So our heroes are still trapped in their, in the cantina there on Navarro, and Moff Gideon is out there with all his troops, and he's basically saying, hey, you guys need to come out, otherwise, we're gonna open fire. And I think this is when they pull out the E-web, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's the second scene here. Yeah.
Yeah, so the E-Web, so we see these in Empire Strikes Back when
Yep.
Han's going to take off in the Falcon and snowtroopers set them up, but then the Falcon blasts them, so they don't last too long. But anyway, they know, the heroes know what the E-Web is. They know that it's serious.
Yep.
And I think Greef Karga is asking, Moff Gideon, like, well, what assurances can you give us that you're not going to kill us? And he's basically straightforward. He's like, you can't trust me. I'm going to do, what's in my best interests. And, at this point, what do you have to lose? Basically, you just come out and, yeah. So I think they start firing on, they're trying to get into the sewer, right? And they start firing on the grate that's in there. The
yeah,
cantina.
that's the Mandalorians' idea, is to get into the sewers, so they could get back and get help from the other Mandalorians that are down there. In this whole speech and everything, we learn a lot about Moff Gideon, that he really knows his stuff. We learn some stuff that he knows who Cara Dune is. We find out she's from Alderaan. He actually knows the name of the Mandalorian, which is Din Djarin. And he knows a lot about Greef Karga. So right away we're clued into, how powerful he is, how knowledgeable he is, and, he's going to be the big baddie here in this episode. And and they're just desperately trying to get into the sewers, shooting the grate, and nothing seems to be working.
Yeah. It's just interesting how he knew, like, everybody's name and where they're from. And I thought it was really cool also to hear Alderaan name dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea that Cara Dune is from Alderaan, but I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah.
So I think at this point, is this where Mando kind of has his little flashback?
Yep, there's a flashback here. He goes back and we finally get to see pretty much the whole thing that they've been teasing us in the first few episodes. Where his parents leave him in that little, like, cellar type thing. It appears that his parents are blown away by a super battle droid. Opens up and the battle droid looks like it's going to kill the young Mandalorian. And then there's some shots fired and he is actually saved by other Mandalorians.
Yeah. And, we finally get a little bit more of that action sequence with the super battle droids and the droid gunships. And, they're scary because, like, if you think back to the prequels, like, these droids were, they were imposing, but they weren't that scary. Like, you actually feel, like, terrified of them, like, when you see them here. Like, they're more like something out of Terminator, like, in this scene.
Yeah, I guess, and advancements in the CGI and stuff like that, they look a lot better than they did in the prequels. So maybe that has something to do with it. They just look more real and scary.
Yeah. And the tone, the show is obviously a little bit different. But yeah, so, sadly his parents are killed. But then the Mandalorians swoop in and we see that, this is basically how he gets his start, like, in the whole Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, it's revealed that he is a foundling, which I think we kind of piece this together after the first couple episodes. And he was raised up by the Mandalorians, and then once he becomes of age, he can swear allegiance to their creed and become Mandalorian. Right.
So this whole, like, flashback bit where the Mandalorians swooping in is really awesome. Initially, I thought that maybe these were like the Death Watch that we see in Clone Wars, but then as I was looking at it again, the colors of their costumes, while very similar, are a little bit different, and the insignias they have on their shoulders are different from Death Watch. So, very similar, obviously, but presumably a different group of Mandalorians.
Yeah, I just love the shot when they show the young Din Djarin and Mandalorian just looking over the shoulder as they're flying through the sky, and then there's a little callback at the end of the episode here, but just the way it's shot and everything, it looks so awesome. Yeah, there definitely is a callback, at the end of this one. It's great to see these Mandalorians, and just in case, anybody's wondering, they did make some very similar toys in the Clone Wars line for Clone Wars of these not these Mandalorians, but very similar ones from Death Watch. And I was on Twitter earlier, and Dan Larson from Toy Galaxy actually had a tweet that said that
talking about those toys and how the value, like the price of them on eBay has skyrocketed since this episode came out. And sure enough, the prices on these figures like Prey of Isla or the Death Watch like battle packs are ridiculously high right now.
Yeah, I think I mentioned before Christmas time when my cousin's kid was asking for Mandalorian toys. And I had done some quick perusing on eBay, and even the Black Series, like Jango Fett, seems like it's a lot more money than it was like a year ago.
Wow.
Yeah, anything Mandalorian seems like it's high in demand right now.
Yeah, that's cool though. I mean, hopefully, that just means we get more merchandise for Mandalorian type stuff. So I'd be totally good with that. So following the flashback. We learned that, he's not from Mandalore, but, he is part of that creed. And, at this point, I think it's when IG-11, he approaches the two scout troopers that have Baby Yoda. But I think before that, and maybe this happened even sooner and we just didn't cover it, was when we kind of get, that really like prolonged scene with the two troopers,
that was
bantering.
So funny. Oh man, that was probably the loudest I laughed in this series yet. So that's those two scout bike troopers are Jason Sudeikis and Adam Pally, comedians, and they're kind of sitting there waiting for their orders to come back into town with the baby. And they are making some remarks about how Moff Gideon has just killed like basically a lot of people, a lot of other troopers. And while they're waiting there trying to pass the time, we see in the foreground, looks like a can or something, and they're trying to shoot the can, and they just miss so bad. It's so funny, and they're shaking their blasters like something's wrong with the blaster, and it's just really funny. It shows you where the makers' heads are at here, trying to show you, like, see, this is how bad stormtroopers are at shooting.
Yep. And then they're pretty cruel to Baby Yoda too, aren't they?
Oh man, that was hard to watch. Even though we know it's not obviously a real living thing, they're punching them and slapping them, and I know my wife was not happy with that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was brutal. It was tough to watch, and this whole scene feels like something out of like a Quentin Tarantino film.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, good one.
But yeah, so IG-11 approaches them and. He makes quick work of them. It doesn't take him very long to take him out. And he takes Baby Yoda and he hijacks one of their speeders and he heads into town.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes here, IG-11 roars into town with Baby Yoda. He just comes flying in on the bike and, no shot seems like it's wasted. It hits a stormtrooper. One shot, they're all down, and he just comes flying in. Distracts a lot of the troopers. They kind of make their way away from the tavern, and here we see Greef, Cara, and Mandalorian kind of try and make their stand, and they try to leave the tavern at this point.
Yep, and I just love seeing like IG-11 on that speeder just flying through, and there's a moment where there's a couple of troopers around a Jawa, and he takes out the troopers. I kind of wanted that Jawa to like cheer or like raise a fist or something, but yeah, no, it's really cool. And just the way he's, like we saw in that first episode where, his body is just like spinning around and, how mobile he, his limbs and his head and everything are. And I really love the way, like, he's got Baby Yoda, but they just like pushes him to the back. And then,
that's my favorite part, when he spins his torso and to protect the baby.
Yeah, the whole thing's great. And, just finally he like jumps off the speeder and like, he goes like, just like full on attacking, all the stormtroopers. And at this point, I guess this is when the heroes, that are trapped in there, they're like, okay, well, this is our out. So they come out, start shooting, and it's basically like a really big shootout. Like Moff Gideon is already like, he's not here at the moment, but the rest of his troopers, most of them are still there, so they're basically just having like a really big shootout.
Yeah, I think Mandalorian goes out and he grabs the E-Web gun. He starts like mowing down a lot of troopers. Greef Karga is out there shooting some of them, and then Cara Dune actually gets pinned back into the tavern. Some of the, I guess, one Death Trooper and some other troopers come in and kind of like pin her back in there. And this is when the Moff Gideon shows up again, Takes out Mandalorian by shooting him in the head and then blowing up the bottom of the gun and pretty badly injuring Mandalorian. And what looked like a great idea in the beginning, we find all of our heroes pinned back in the tavern, but this time now Baby Yoda and IG-11 are trapped with them.
Right. Yeah, so it seems like all is lost, but then IG-11, he's able to cut through that grate. But, it takes him a while. So in the meantime, they're still trying to fend off these troopers. And this is kind of about where one of the Inferno troopers, makes his way into the tavern. And, he's pretty scary. We can see what, his equipment is capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he kind of lights up the front of it, and then he comes in the door, and it looks like everyone's going to be toasted. And Baby Yoda makes his way up there and uses the Force and stops the flame and flicks it back and burns the trooper.
Yeah, really great to see that. And that trooper design, that goes back. I'm really happy that they used it. It goes all the way back to the Force Unleashed video game. And I even have that. I have that figure. It was a Walmart exclusive where they did 2 of those figures, and I want to say the Emperor came with it. So yeah, I like that they're not completely discarding stuff like that. They're still using it. I think that's great.
Yeah, they're doing nice, callbacks to things that already existed instead of just trying to invent something new all the time.
Yeah, totally. That's something actually I think the sequel trilogy has done a lot, is try to invent a lot of things that, maybe didn't need to be invented, but that's neither here nor there. So finally they get into the sewer and, they're all making their way through, except for Mando and IG-11, right? Because, Kara pulled him into the tavern and, he's hurt really badly. And, she basically says, well, we need to treat your head, but, we can't do that without getting your helmet off. And he's like, nope, not going to happen. He charges her with protecting Baby Yoda. And IG-11 says he'll stay behind, but, she makes IG-11 promise to bring Mando along with him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, basically, Mandalorian here, he's dying. He thinks IG-11 is going to, give him his hero's death, and IG-11 the whole time is trying to heal him, and he's going, no, I will, destroy you if you try and take my helmet off. Not one living thing has seen me without my helmet since I've taken my oath. And IG-11, being, wise and wisecracking is just well, I am not alive. And Mandalorian allows him to take the helmet off and treat his wounded head. And we get to see the face of Pedro Pascal here for the first time. Yeah.
So, obviously we knew what he was going to more or less look like, right? But, my husband and, my father-in-law, when we were watching this, they had no idea, who the actor was or anything. So, I wonder what it feels like if you totally didn't know, who the actor was or anything. If you would have been surprised or... But yeah, no, it's like you said, it's the first time we've seen without the helmet. And, we can see he's pretty beat up, there's blood coming out of the back of his head. He looks tired. And I think IG-11 has a pretty good line here. He says something about your central processor has been damaged. And Mando's like, you mean my brain? And IG-11's like, yeah, I was trying to make a joke.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so he ends up spraying him with some Bacta spray, and he tells him, in a little bit he'll start to feel better, and carries him down to meet up with everyone else in the sewers.
When I was watching this, I kind of thought, well, why didn't Baby Yoda just heal Mando? But then I remembered he's kind of fell asleep right after he attacked that incinerator trooper.
Yeah, that's real cute. Almost every time he does something, it exhausts him, and he just kind of passes out.
Yeah. Which, obviously showing us that using the Force to some extent does take a toll, I guess, especially if you're not, a wise old Jedi or something. But, yeah, so we kind of see that in Rise of Skywalker too, right? A little bit with, and when Rey, even when she's healing the serpent or whatever, and, she kind of rubs her hand, kind of showing that, it does take a little bit of a toll on you when you you use force heal. So IG-11 carries Mando into the store, or, you know, kind of guides him in, and they catch up with the rest of the group. But then they realize, you know, there's a lot of tunnels. Mando obviously knows like what way, but eventually they get to a point where all they find is a bunch of Mandalorian armor just like in a big pile.
Pretty shocking. Yeah, it's just like looks like everyone's been, you know, done away with. There's a big pile of armor there, and out of nowhere we hear the voice of the armorer come out and say that this is their own fault for showing themselves, and the Imperial presence came down into the sewer and killed them.
Yeah, that was... So I didn't completely get that. So she said that after they revealed themselves that the Imperials came like immediately, but what I didn't quite get is if this encounter happened like outside, like kind of like, you know, in the town, like we saw at the end of you know, the previous episode where all the Mandalorians came out, or if it happened in the sewer. I didn't really get like exactly where that...
it's not clear, I guess. You know, I kind of just, you see it there, I assumed it was in the sewers, but then later she does say something about she has her work and her salvaging, so I guess maybe she could have just been going anywhere to get the armor and just bring it back, and I assume she put it in the big pile. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I wasn't really... Yeah, kind of hard to say. But in any case, we see that she's salvaging the armor. She's trying to... Well, what is she even doing with the armor? So I guess she's melting it down, right? It seems like...
Yeah, because then this is where they have the conversation about, you know, this is the little one that's caused all the trouble and cost so many lives and stuff. And then they start talking about this is the one that saved him from the Mudhorn, and he's awarded his signet, and she... forges the signet of the Mudhorn and like welds it to his armor.
Yeah, so no, it was pretty cool. And she said something like, you know, now you guys are a group of two, and you know, you need to care for him as if he was a foundling, as if, you know, you were his father, and you know, you obviously, you know, he's too small, wouldn't survive, you know, being trained, but you know, your task is going to be to reunite him with his own kind. And she talks a little bit about, you know, how I guess the Jedi were previously enemies of the Mandalorians, and so, you know, Mando, you know, at this point doesn't really seem like he's too familiar with any of this, which is interesting because, you know, obviously in the time that, you know, he was a kid and, you know, all the battle droids and stuff were out, you know, this is when the Jedi were kind of like, you know, playing a big part in the Clone Wars. So it's kind of interesting to, I guess, you know, they're kind of alluding, I guess, to, you know, the Jedi were present at the time, but maybe they weren't necessarily everywhere.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, but we were kids, I guess, when prequels came out and stuff, and I was under the impression at the time that just everybody knows who the Jedi are because they're so prominent. But with the Disney here being owners of this property now, it sort of seems like they're trying to paint it as maybe not everyone knew who they were, or maybe they were kind of more legendary, you know, myth or folklore or something than people really realized. I don't know what they're going for here.
Yeah, definitely seems like it. And also the fact that, you know, it's the time gap between the, you know, prequel era and Mandalorian is something like 25, 30 years, right? So
they must have really bad memories in the Star Wars universe, because I mean, we talk about, like, you know, Jurassic Park and things from 25 years ago, like, all the time, and remember everything, and they can't remember Jedi.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's a big galaxy. And, yeah. So, but yeah, so, you know, so she also gives Mando his own jetpack, and she says something like, you know, it's not going to listen to you unless you practice with it. You know, when you have time, you need to learn it, and then you'll be able to use it efficiently, which I think at the end of this episode, we kind of see, well, you know, he's pretty good with it already. But, you know, this kind of seems like it completes his armor, right? Like, that's kind of the one thing that's missing from Mando's armor at this point has been the jetpack.
Yeah, I guess Favreau was basically, you know, like, now he's Boba Fett. He's got the jetpack, you know, which I think is really cool. And they set that up in was that episode 3 when he says, I got to get me one of those. He finally gets it now. And, you know, they allude that he had some training with it when he was younger. So I really like that part.
Yeah, that was really cool to see. And so at this point, they head out. The one Mando stays behind though, right? She's like, says, "Oh,
The
my place
armor
is here."
stays back, to finish her work, I guess, of salvaging, and then that's the next scene. She's actually sitting, looking like she's meditating or something. About 5 stormtroopers come up to her and trying to ask her some questions, and she just melee takes care of them all, lays them all out real fast.
Yeah, the one that falls into the melding pit, like he just kind of like melts like on impact. It's pretty great.
Yep.
Yeah, but she's awesome. Like, just her skills, like, she's, like you said, takes him out real quick. One of the troopers' helmet just shatters, and yeah, really good visuals.
I'm sure we'll see her again. I was kind of hoping that she would take him up on the offer and go with them, but we got a cool scene out of it.
Yeah. I'd venture a guess that we'll see her again. I hope we do. So they continue on, Mando and the group, and they're continuing out to the tunnel, and then they find the river, right, like the lava river, and there's a boat there that they need to take in order to get out into the what do they call it, like a lava lake or something.
I think it's a lava river or something. They kind of bust that boat free, and it turns out that it actually has a driver, is this weird astromech droid on the back.
Yeah, that was really unexpected because first you just see it looks like a regular astromech droid, but then once they start like talking to it and it wakes up and you realize like, oh, this is something we've never seen before. It's just really bizarre.
Yeah, my TV is so dark and hard to see. Were the legs like IG legs or something and arms on it, or were they different?
Oh, they might have been. I'd have to go back and look, but they looked kind of familiar, like its construction, but it was just weird. Like, imagine an action figure of this thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same thing. I'm like, Hasbro should make that. That's cool.
Yeah, it'd be probably like a deluxe figure or something. Yeah. So they head down the river. Once they're in the clear, I don't know if they called it a lake or pond or wherever the river was taking them, but Mando puts on he activates his infrared, and he sees that there's actually like a little platoon of troopers that are waiting right outside the opening of the river, and they basically say, oh, we're going to be outnumbered, there's not a whole lot we can do, we're going to have to basically go down fighting. But then IG-11's like, slow down, you still have me, and I can take out those guys. And Mando's like, well, you don't have enough firepower to do that. And then that's when he reminds him, well, I have my self-destruct capability that, I can't be captured. It's the manufacturer's protocol. And I think Mando says something like, well, doesn't your role as a nurse outweigh, your secondary protocols? And he's like, yeah, but, if keeping the baby safe means self-destructing, then, that's basically what I have to do.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Everyone's idea was to just shoot their way out of it, and IG-11 is like, no, here's plan B. If you promise to take care of them, I can fulfill my protocol, and I'll blow them up, and you guys can get out of here free.
Yeah. It really cool visuals, like when he steps out onto the lava and starts walking out there, and you feel kind of bad because IG-11, like, at first he's this assassin droid, but even in that first episode he's got personality, and he's likable, but then as we've gotten to know him over these past couple episodes as well, we've how like we were talking about earlier, how Quill like reprograms him, and we see him relearning things, and he's grown on us as an audience, and to see him like kind of go out like that, in a heroic way, which is awesome, but it's also kind of sad too.
Yeah, big moment here for the Mandalorian. He's actually become attached to IG-11, and he's sad. They have that little exchange, and he goes, "I'm not sad," and IG-11's like, "I've read your speech pattern. I can tell that you're sad." Yeah, that's great. Another one of those little touches that just add so much. And one touch I wanted to add onto her that I forgot about earlier is
when the shootout starts, like, in the tavern, like you see Grief Karga like just take like a shot like real quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Just those little touches that really like add, not only to the characters, but just like make, the show just so much more entertaining.
Yeah. A lot of depth added to every single one of these characters.
Yeah, totally. So, so IG-11, he makes his way out. The troopers are ready. They're just kind of like taking, like looking at him like, oh, this is weird. But then, he activates his self-destruct and, he blows them all up.
Yep. Pretty spectacularly, yeah.
Yeah, they all go down in a fiery blast. And so at this point, our heroes make it out, of the tunnel on the river. And it's not, before long that we realize that Moff Gideon is airborne and, he's on the offensive.
He's flying around in his TIE fighter up in the sky there. And another funny line here, they don't have any plans, don't know what to do, and Grief Karga is like, let's make the baby do the magic hand thing.
Yeah, that was funny. Just the way Cara Dune looks at him like, what's wrong with you? And it's funny because Baby Yoda raises his hand, but so he makes a pass, he shoots at them, and they realize that their weapons are ineffective against the TIE fighter. But then Mando's like, well, I got this. So he puts the jetpack on, and he goes airborne too. And this is really cool to see too, because up until this point we haven't seen Mando do this. So seeing him fly with the jetpack is really cool, and he's really quick. And he uses his arsenal to, his rope or whatever we want to call his grappling hook, another Batman-esque weapon, to attach himself to the TIE fighter, and basically like make his way onto it and try and get in there with his blaster.
Yeah, he swings up around there. He tries to get a couple charges on there. He drops one, and he ends up getting a couple charges on the wings. Gets down and blows the TIE fighter up, and it goes spiraling off into the sand dunes somewhere.
Yeah, that was really cool. Like, just to see the panic on Moff Gideon's face, like when he realizes, like, oh, this is it. So he goes and you notice that the TIE fighter, when it crashes, it doesn't explode.
Yeah. Yep, I noticed that right away.
Yeah, like the wing got damaged, kind of like almost like the toys, like a lot of the TIE fighter toys, they have that thing where the wings pop off. It was something like kind of like that. One of the wings sort of popped off, but it doesn't explode, it just crashes into the soot or the ash or whatever. But that's all we see of it. So it cuts back to the heroes, and Grief Karga's like, oh, Mando, that was very impressive, what you did. And at this point, he's like, you'll be welcome back into the guild. There's no problems. You're good. He lets Cara Dune know, well, if you want to stay here too, you'll be my enforcer and this and that. And ultimately, she decides to stay there on Navarro, huh?
Yep, they stay together, and Mandalorian is basically like, I've got business to take care of. I gotta, this is the way. I have to find the baby's people, return them, and I think we see them bid each other farewell. And then one of the last scenes that we see is he actually ends up burying Quill under some rocks and stuff in a little grave, and puts his goggles on top of it and stuff, and gets onto the Razor Crest and takes off.
Yeah. Yes, he takes off. We see the Razor Crest fly overhead. Cara and Grief are, just kind of down there and seeing him, like fly away. And he flies over the wreckage of the TIE fighter, and then we see something really cool. And Dave, in the last episode that we just published, where we're talking about the previous episodes of Mandalorian, I mentioned something about what actually happened in this scene. I said, how cool would it be if we actually saw the Darksaber in action to see what it looked like in live action?
Yeah.
And sure enough, what happens in this final moment in the season?
Yeah, we see the Jawas look like they're going to start parting out this TIE fighter, and then we see, it's like something starts melting the hole from the inside, and we see the Darksaber blade just come through, cut a nice big opening, and out steps Moff Gideon wielding the Darksaber.
That was freaking epic. Like,
Yeah.
as soon as I saw that, like, obviously I 100% knew what it was. Like, my husband and my father-in-law, they didn't know what it was. I had to explain, oh, this is the Darksaber. We've seen, it's been in the cartoons. I know you guys don't watch the cartoons, but I watch the cartoons and it plays quite heavily in them. And this is the first time we see it, like, in live action, and, had to go, do that little rundown. But yeah, like, actually seeing the thing, like, it looked exactly like it does in the cartoon, right?
Yeah,
it's like
great.
It's like black silhouette, but with kind of the opposite of a lightsaber, right? It's black, but it has the white light around it.
Yeah, I always wondered what it would look like in live action, and then you see it and you're like, that looks exactly like it did on the cartoon shows. But yeah, I was super excited, and I jump up and I'm yelling, "Oh, it's the Darksaber!" And my wife doesn't know what that is, but it's nice that it's pretty obvious it's a lightsaber of some sort, and
right.
My wife is all excited, going, "Oh, is he Sith?" And she got it,
Yeah, that was really cool. Like, I was so stoked. Like, that was like the cherry on top of this awesome episode, this awesome season. Like, the Darksaber is going to play a role, and presumably in season 2, and we'll see, what happens with it. Maybe we'll get some of the background on, where it's been since Sabine got it, But yeah, so what do you think? I mean, we've talked about all 8 episodes of this first season. What thoughts do you have?
I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Great character building from beginning to end. Coming into this, I just thought we were going to be dealing with bounty hunters and underworld, and we get the whole element of the Force, and now in this last episode they're talking about Jedi, and I'm super excited to see where we're going in season 2. Could we run into other famous Jedi? We have Filoni at the helm. Are we going to run into Ahsoka? Are we going to run into Sabine? I don't know. Other Jedi. There's going to be Luke Skywalker out there. Getting to learn more about Mandalore and the Darksaber, and finding out could we run into, Bo-Katan or anyone, or, I'm super excited.
Yeah, it's, when we first got into this season, I never would have thought like the Darksaber, a lot of like, the Mandalorians flying around on jetpacks. I never really thought that would be feasible, and that's something they would explore. But then we see those things, and you remember that, Dave Filoni has a huge hand in this series, and Jon Favreau has a huge hand in this series. He was the voice of Pre Vizsla, and, then it doesn't seem so impossible that, maybe these other things you're talking about could actually happen in season 2.
Yeah, I feel like after the last couple episodes, I feel like we're watching this series is going to be sort of the sequel to Rebels, and Rebels was the sequel series to Clone Wars, Yeah. I really feel like it's got that next step, and seeing things like the Darksaber, deep cuts in Star Wars that not everyone knows about. You can see that this stuff works, and this show is a hit, and people that don't know everything about Star Wars still are interested in seeing things like the Darksaber. And, I started out around the time of Force Awakens and trying to read a lot of the books, and I kind of got discouraged from them because they didn't really tie into the movies as much as they kind of let on. So I kind of trailed off from the books, and this just sort of proves that you can have deep cuts. There can be things that will work for the mainstream audience, the casual fan, and there will be things for the hardcore fan that you can all tie it together and it'll work well. They did it.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. Like, this series, this show has, I think for a lot of Star Wars fans, it's kind of been the thing that, has in a way been lacking from, Disney live action, Star Wars. Like, I like the sequel trilogy, like, for the most part. I know we've talked about that at length in one of the previous episodes where we're reviewing Rise of Skywalker, but like, this show really has like that balance figured out, between like catering to longtime fans while also moving the story forward, and also introducing new things, Baby Yoda and, these other aspects of the Star Wars universe that we haven't really seen before, like the Guild and, all this stuff that's going on, with the New Republic. And But it's also has things that are catering to, like we we're saying, like people that did follow Clone Wars and Rebels, and it just seems like the balance of this show is just really well like conceived. Like they're really catering to everybody that's ever like liked any aspect of Star Wars, and I think that's one of the things that's made it so successful.
Yeah, it's just I think it's smaller, tighter, more controlled than like the sequel trilogy. You've got a lot of hands in there working together. I'm assuming the story group is probably more involved with Filoni being here, as probably they were in like the sequel trilogy. And you've got Favreau's vision, and how close Filoni is to the lore and being like a student of George Lucas's and everything. It just seems like tighter and more thought out than what we've seen in Star Wars so far. But it's really well.
Yeah, definitely. And that has me really excited, also for season 2, because like you say, with Filoni and Favreau in charge, maybe we will get Ahsoka. Maybe we'll find out what happened to Ezra and Thrawn. like, we just don't know. I mean, there's so many possibilities. I mean, I'd love to see, like Hera, like in live action, or, there's just so many things that they could tie in. And I'm sure they'll continue to weave in, these different bits of the lore, and also, propel the story forward. And yeah, it'll be really interesting to see what season 2 has in store. And I've thoroughly enjoyed every episode of this first season. And my husband, who I've said before, he's not the biggest Star Wars fan, but he watches the movies with me, and he's watched Mandalorian with me. He's really liked it. So I think that says a lot too, when they're able to not only make the long-term Star Wars fans happy, but also like just casual viewers happy as well.
Yeah, this is where we are now for the next few years, being without movies. So we got Kenobi series coming, Cassian Andor series, some more Clone Wars. So we live in here on the small screen, and this any indication is to things to come. We're really off on the right foot.
Yeah, there's a lot on the horizon in terms of Star Wars live action, and I'm really excited for it all. That Kenobi series is going to be awesome. I think if this is if this is a taste of what we can expect, then I think we're in for a real treat with Kenobi. And then of course Cassian Andor is going to be coming at some point as well.
And that's Deborah Chow, right? Is going to be directing the whole Kenobi series. Am I right on that?
I don't know about the whole series, but yeah, definitely involved.
But yeah, those are definitely her episodes were some of the better episodes. So I'm real excited if she has here, if it's going to be real cool.
Totally. Speaking of Kenobi, did you happen to see the fan film that was released last week for?
Yeah, I did. I watched it Friday, I think it was. Yeah.
So this is by Jamie Costa. So he's done fan films before. I think previously he portrayed Han Solo in one of his fan films. But in this one, he's actually portraying Ben Kenobi. Yeah,
I like that. That was cool. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It was neat, and it was, you could tell it was fan filmy. It was different, but great effects. And he had the voice down pretty well. He had the voice down, awesome. And also James Arnold Taylor was in this one, so I thought that was great. Yeah, it was really good, really well done. Yeah. So yeah, just as we put a bow on this season 1 discussion, did anything stick out to you that you want to see made into a toy? Well, that astromech droid thing, I think, really stuck out to me. The Black Series, I guess, is where it's at for me. I want to see more Mandalorian Black Series, like the Armorer, and yeah. But I'm not sure about like a lot of the toys and vehicles we already have. A lot of them so far. But yeah. I think we need more Mandalorian figures for sure. 6-inch, 3 3/4 inch. I don't care as long as they're from this show. I want them. We talked already about how we need Quill. I think we need Moff Gideon. I wouldn't mind the group from the Prisoner episode as well. Like I think they'd be pretty awesome to have as figures. They were each really unique. I love that. They'll be coming back, I guess, the way they left them on there on the ship. So hopefully they're more important in season 2. And I hope so. Get some figures of them and stuff. And Bill Burr figure would be funny to have too. The photo reel or something look just like them. Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
I want to see a Cara Dune Hot Toys too, because I know they've already announced Mandalorian and IG-11, but I'd really love to see Cara Dune as a Hot Toys.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many possibilities. They're really lacking. I think I had read somewhere that Disney was estimating that they had lost something like $3 million for not having Baby Yoda merchandise out for the holidays. Yeah.
Was it a secrecy thing or something, you think, or?
Yeah, basically. They wanted to keep it a secret until, the show came out, and they did. And, I know we talked about it when we were talking about that first episode, how it was a really cool thing to keep secret because, we didn't expect it, and it was awesome. But yeah, that's basically what it was. These days they're just really secretive about their new projects, and, like it is with the toys for the films, we don't really get a whole lot of the main characters and stuff until later.
Yeah, I was very pleasantly surprised that they kept that such a secret, and I got to experience that, and I feel bad for our friends in places like the UK that everything's been spoiled, basically. I saw Tom Fishton tweeting the other day about it, how it was already spoiled for him.
Yeah, that's too bad. I really don't get why they couldn't coordinate Disney Plus better. I don't know if it came down to legal reasons or regulations or what, but it just, I don't know. It just seems really strange. At this point in time, that they couldn't set that up a little bit better. But
weird. I mean, we're global now. It's not like the old days before the internet where you could release a movie years later.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah. In any case, I don't think I have anything to add on to that. I think we've covered season 1 pretty well over these last few episodes, and talked a bit about merchandise and what the future might hold in store. So yeah, unless you have anything to add on to that, I think
no, I just would say I'm hoping to bring on Sabine Wren in season 2, live action Sabine.
Yes.
She's the key, right? I've been thinking that the whole series. She's Mandalorian, and she knows about the Jedi, which they're kind of letting us know that a lot of people don't, and she's kind of got both sides of the coin here, so hopefully we'll see her.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. I think they could do it. I think they could even cast, if they wanted some of these characters, if they wanted to bring them in, they could probably just cast the voice actors.
Yeah,
I think it would work just fine.
Yep.
But yeah, in any case, I think we've done a good job talking about Mandalorian. And Dave, it's been a pleasure having you on the show for these past, few episodes as we've recapped and shared our thoughts about Mandalorian and, the first season of this show. We've gotten a really good feel at this point for what a Disney Plus Star Wars series is like. And I think, we're on the whole, we're very happy with it. And it's been awesome recapping it with you. So, a huge thank you to you for doing that.
Well, yeah, thanks a lot for having me on the podcast and thinking of me to talk about this show. And it's been a lot of fun breaking it down, and a real pleasure being your guest.
Absolutely. It's been great. And I assume that before too long, we'll be talking about Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that. Just a couple months away. Yeah,
I'm going to have to catch up and rewatch stuff that I forgot. I'm trying to on the Disney Plus here. But yeah. Just, one thing I always tell people, that are getting in, because, a lot of people are getting into Clone Wars, for the first time, watch it in chronological order. Unfortunately, they didn't air that way, but StarWars.com, the official site, has a great list of what the chronological order is, and I highly encourage anybody that hasn't seen the series yet to watch it in that order, because it makes a lot more sense, especially those first couple seasons. Yeah, and I watched it in the order it was presented, and it is confusing in the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense when it's chronologically viewed. But yeah, so Dave, where can our listeners go to look you up online?
I'm on Instagram on Jurassic Dave 93. I'm also on Twitter under Jurassic Dave 93. I have a YouTube channel if you guys want to check out any Jurassic Park toys videos or anything on Jurassic Dave 93. But send me a message or a tweet or Instagram message or something, chat about Star Wars or anything else pop culture related.
Very cool. Well, Dave, thanks again. It's awesome having you here as a Star Wars television correspondent, and I look forward to many more conversations with you about Star Wars TV in the future.
All right. Thank you, Victoria.
If you aren't already, subscribe to the place it all started, the Victoria's Cantina YouTube channel, where I review new toys and showcase retro toys from the past. You can also follow us for news and updates on Facebook by looking up Victoria's Cantina, toy photography on Instagram at Victoria's Cantina, and a constant drip of toy-related and other random and nonsensical tweets on Twitter at Vic's Cantina. If you're so inclined, we are on Patreon. Gain greater access to Victoria's Cantina by becoming a Patreon Cantina patron. For as little as $1 a month, you'll help to keep the show going and also get exclusive content such as access to a private Twitter feed, early access to toy reviews, and behind-the-scenes featurettes. And if you can't, but you still want to help us out, one of the easiest and most helpful things you can do is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, so hit that 5-star rating and leave a note stating why you enjoy the show. It'll make us more visible on iTunes and help others to find our show. As always, I'm Victoria, and no matter where you're listening out in the galaxy, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter podcast.